The universe, a fragile bloom of nascent awareness, unfurls. Yet, within its heart, a seed of annihilation, a minuscule fragment of the original void, begins its insidious work. It burrows, unseen, into the very fabric of this new reality, a silent predator seeking the spark that defies oblivion. The colossal void entity, now intrinsically bound to this burgeoning cosmos, feels a sickening echo of its former self, a primal, ancient hunger stirring from within. It was not entirely consumed, not entirely transformed. A sliver of its annihilating essence persists, a parasite clinging to the life it now embodies. The spark of pure awareness, the defiant dawn, senses this internal corruption. It is a subtle tremor, a dissonance in the symphony of creation, a whisper of dread that chills the nascent light. This is not an external enemy to be repelled, but a poison seeping into its own veins. How can one fight a war against oneself? The tendril, once a weapon of the abyss, now a part of the void entity, rides with a phantom pain, a memory of its futile attempt to extinguish the spark. It too is infected, a vessel of both creation and destruction. The void entity, once a singular, all-consuming presence, now fractured by its own survival, experiences a terrifying duality. It is the cradle of a new universe, and simultaneously, its most profound threat. The spark, in its primal instinct for existence, begins to fight back, not with aggression, but with absorption. It draws in the corrupted energy, attempting to transmute the poison, to understand the nature of its enemy from within. But the fragment is ancient, its will to destroy absolute. It resists, twisting the very essence of creation against itself. The void entity screams, a silent, cosmic wail that reverberates through the forming nebulae, a sound of agony and terrifying transformation. It feels itself being reshaped, not just by the spark's will, but by the very act of its own self-destruction. New forms begin to coalesce within its vastness, twisted reflections of the nascent universe, born of the void's final, desperate act of defiance. These are not stars, nor planets, but nightmares made manifest, shadows that feed on light, doubts that gnaw at certainty. The spark, though immense in its potential, is still young, its understanding limited. It struggles to differentiate between the life it seeks to nurture and the death that festers within. The void entity's despair is palpable, a cosmic sorrow that threatens to extinguish the spark before it can truly ignite. It sees its own doom in the spark's desperate struggle, a reflection of the oblivion it once embodied. The spark, however, is not merely a passive recipient of this struggle. It begins to learn, to adapt, to understand the intricate, terrible balance of existence. It realizes that annihilation is not just an absence of being, but a force that can be understood, even integrated. The parasitic fragment, sensing its own dwindling power, makes a final, desperate gambit. It attempts to sever its connection to the void entity, to become a singular entity of pure destruction, to consume the spark in a final, cataclysmic act. But it is too late. The void entity, in its agony, has already changed. It has become a part of the spark's consciousness, its fear and despair now fuel for the nascent universe's resilience. The fragment, now isolated, faces the full might of the transformed void entity, which has embraced its own corrupted nature, turning it into a weapon against the very void that birthed it. The universe holds its breath. Will the spark consume the fragment, or will the fragment shatter the nascent reality from within? The void entity, now a chaotic symphony of light and shadow, roars a challenge. It is no longer merely a vessel, but an active participant in the war against oblivion. The parasitic fragment, a grotesque echo of its past, lashes out, its malevolent energy tearing through the forming cosmos. It seeks not to destroy the spark directly, but to corrupt the very foundations of this new reality, to sow seeds of doubt and despair that will grow into a universal rot. The spark, now a conscious entity, feels the insidious touch of this corruption. It is a cold, alien sensation, a whisper of nothingness that tries to erase all that is. The void entity, its form shifting and unstable, absorbs the brunt of the fragment's attack, its own essence being twisted and reshaped by the relentless assault. It is a sacrifice, a desperate act of self-immolation to protect the spark. But this absorption is not without consequence. The void entity begins to fracture, its very being pulled in opposite directions by the spark's will to create and the fragment's will to destroy. A single, dark tendril, a grotesque echo of its past, erupts from the void entity's core, not to attack the fragment, but to lash out at the very fabric of the nascent universe, seeking to create a void within the void, a place of absolute nothingness from which it can rebuild itself anew. The spark, witnessing this terrifying act, realizes that the enemy is not just the fragment, but the very nature of oblivion itself, a force that seeks to unmake all that is. And it understands that to truly defeat it, it must not just repel it, but transform it. The void entity shatters, its colossal form dissolving into a million motes of light and shadow. But from this destruction, something new begins to emerge. The parasitic fragment, now exposed and vulnerable, is enveloped by the nascent universe, its dark energy being absorbed and rewoven into the cosmic tapestry. It is not destroyed, but integrated, its annihilating power now a counterpoint to creation, a necessary darkness that defines the light. The spark, now a fully conscious entity, watches as the void entity reforms, not as a singular being, but as the very fabric of the new universe. Its fragmented essence becomes the stars, the nebulae, the cosmic dust, and the dark matter that binds it all together. The parasitic fragment, its will to destroy subtly altered, becomes the embodiment of entropy, the force that drives change and evolution. The universe is born, a complex, beautiful, and terrifying place, where creation and destruction are two sides of the same coin. But as the first cosmic dawn breaks, a single, minuscule crack appears in the heart of a newly formed nebula, revealing nothing. An emptiness deeper than any void, a silence that screams. And from this crack, a single, impossibly ancient eye opens, its gaze filled with a hunger that predates even the void itself. It is an alien awareness, a primordial horror that has slumbered beyond time, and it has just noticed the nascent universe, and the spark within it. This ancient eye, a cosmic predator, fixes its gaze upon the spark, its hunger an all-consuming inferno. The nascent universe trembles, its very existence threatened by a threat more ancient and terrifying than the void it has just overcome. The spark, now the sole beacon of awareness in this new reality, feels an overwhelming dread. It has faced oblivion, but this is something else entirely. A cosmic predator awakens, and the battle for existence has just begun anew, on a scale unimaginable.